It may be hard to believe, but in 2002, I was actually just a wide-eyed goth kid with a desire for an advanced degree and a slight obsession with serial killers. Fortunately, I found a master's degree program in forensic psychology, and I got to spend the next 2 years studying the criminal mind. It's pretty cool. Unfortunately, when I graduated, I decided that I didn't actually want to hunt down murderers for a living. I never actually worked in the field. However, it changed the way that I think. I use the lessons that I learned every single day, especially when it comes to storytelling. Today, you're going to learn the tools that you need to craft stories about your business that will help you connect with your customers and increase your bottom line. Does that sound like it would be helpful? Okay. So why are stories so powerful? Why do you need that emotional connection to make the sale? Gerald Zaltman is a professor at Harvard Business School, and he said that 95% of our buying decisions are actually subconscious. Let me say that one more time. 95% of our buying decisions are subconscious. That means that the best product isn't necessarily the one that's going to win. The companies that take the time to build a relationship, build trust, and establish an emotional connection with their audience, those are the ones that will be chosen. Would you like to be the chosen company? Then you have to tell stories. Has anybody ever tried to sell nothing? Have you ever sat across the table from someone and asked them to give you money when you had absolutely nothing to give them in return? Exactly. In 2015, I was talking to a potential donor to the animal rescue. I was throwing out facts and figures and statistics. I told him exactly how many dogs and cats were being killed in our shelters because there weren't enough homes for them. I told him how much it costs to take an animal from the shelter, feed it, give it medical attention, give it a place to live until we found the forever home. I even told him how much it would cost to spay and neuter our community animals so that we didn't have this problem going forward. Oh, was he bored? His eyes were glazed over. He kept checking his watch. I think at some point he might have used some kind of mind trick to try and trip the fire alarm. I was horrified. I was going to have to go home without any money for these animals. I felt like a failure. And then I remembered that I'm a storyteller. And I decided to take him on an emotional journey. Gemma. This little mini dachshund was dropped in the night drop at the local animal shelter. When they found her in the morning, they discovered that her back legs were paralyzed. They said she'd never walk. And since there were so many healthy animals in the shelter, they said she'd never find a home. Gemma was sitting on the table waiting for the vet to prep the needle, when one of our volunteers just happened to be walking by. Through that tiny little window, Gemma caught her eye. She busted into the room, scooped the dog up off the table, and brought her to our rescue. From there, Gemma went to stay with our executive director, Kelly. Now, Kelly's already in a wheelchair, so her house is perfectly set up. Gemma got the medical attention and the love that she needed. We even got her a little wheelchair so she could run with her front paws and drag her back legs behind her. And 2 weeks later, Gemma jumped off the couch, no wheelchair involved, and ran into the kitchen for dinner. I still remember the day we all got that video, and it tears me up every time. Gemma now lives in an amazing home with a fantastic dad, furry siblings, and she's got her own pool because apparently she's like this little Michael Phelps of doggies. When I finally stopped throwing numbers at this man and statistics and connected with him on an emotional level, I walked out with a check. When you stop trying to sell your customers on products or services, that is when your sales will soar. Storytelling for business is not about crafting a fairy tale. It's about applying relevant and true experiences to your customers to help showcase your business. And you don't have to be an award-winning writer. You just have to follow the 4 P's of storytelling for business. Put yourself in their shoes, and then be purposeful, powerful, and pure and simple. With our time today, we are going to talk about how to be purposeful and powerful. Purposeful storytelling is storytelling with an end in mind, a goal. It helps you connect emotionally, position yourself as an expert, and lets your potential customer know why you do what you do. There's 3 different stories that you must have down. Those are your origin story, your customer experience story, and your cause marketing story. Are you familiar with Superman? Yes? I just need to know, is everybody familiar with Superman? Yes? Okay, thank you. Because normally when I talk about the origin story, I bring up X-Men and Wolverine, and I hear crickets and see just dead eyes. So I'm glad I finally found something everybody has paid attention to. When you're first introduced to Superman, and now this origin term is actually borrowed from the comic book industry. So when you're first introduced to Superman, you hear about an incredibly strong guy whose biggest superpower, in my opinion, is his ability to hide his real identity wearing only a pair of glasses and some hair gel. You might be wondering, why is this guy so strong? You might be wondering, why does he seem to be afraid of rocks? And if you're me, you're wondering, where is this guy when I need to open a jar of tomato sauce? Seriously. But then we hear about his origin story. Superman, as it turns out, was born as Kal-El on the planet Krypton. Knowing that his planet was going to be destroyed, his parents packed him up, shoved him into a spacecraft, and sent him out to hopefully survive. Shards of the planet survived as kryptonite, and that is why it's the only thing that can hurt him. We now understand why Superman is the way he is. You may not be a superhero. However, if you can open a jar of tomato sauce for me, I'd really appreciate it. But you still need to tell your customers why you do what you do. Your why is actually more important than your what or your how. There's a great TED Talk by Simon Sinek, How Great Leaders Inspire Action, where he says that people don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. A friend of mine, his name is Ken, he sells a diet program. But when he talks about the program, he doesn't tell you how it works. He tells you that a few years ago, he was 60 pounds overweight. He had no energy for his job. His doctor was threatening cholesterol medication. And his kids kept asking him, "Daddy, why don't you want to play with us anymore?" And then he found this diet program. He lost 60 pounds, got his energy, his life, and his family back. And now he helps other people to do the same. Your why, your origin story, is what is going to separate you from the other competitors. It's what's going to make you stand out. Once you've got your origin story down, you're going to need customer experience stories. Your customers know why you do what you do, but they need to know that it works. For me, that customer experience story is usually Gemma, when I'm talking about the rest of you, who went from a death sentence to her own pool. But these stories don't always have to be good. You can use a different variation. You can use the "what happens if you don't buy" story. My friend Joe here in the front row, he used to sell life insurance. A friend of his came into the office one day to buy a policy. If he were to die, his wife and his 4 children would get $1 million. It would be enough to pay off the mortgage, to pay all the monthly bills, and to send the kids to college. Paperwork was drawn up, and Joe got on the phone and said, "I just need you to stop in, sign the paperwork, and give me that first month's payment." But he never did. A few weeks later, he was driving home from a job site in California when he was hit head on, killed instantly. Now, instead of $1 million to pay off the mortgage and send the kids to college, Joe had to start a crowdfunding campaign so that they could bury him. Now I ask you, which is a better way to sell? With statistics about how much it costs for a funeral? Or with a story about a family left without a father? It's okay to tell your potential customers what will happen if they don't buy from you. Third type of story you need to know is the cause marketing story. And honestly, that's really why we're all here. Raise your hand if you've heard the term cause marketing before. Well, I would hope so back there. It's actually more hands than I usually see. Normally I get the blank stares and crickets again. Cause marketing is when you partner with a nonprofit to improve your community, increase your visibility, and increase your favorability. Put your consumer hat on for one moment. Would you rather do business with a company that is improving the community or with one that's just out to make a buck? When you partner with a nonprofit, you attract like-minded people because people want to do business with other people who care about the same things they do, whether it's pets or animals. Now you know how they're in my head. Or kids, or the homeless, veterans, whatever it may be. When I went looking for a paper calendar a few years ago, there will be no judgment. Thank you very much. I am analog. I like my paper calendar. Take a lot of garbage for that. I found this company called Passion Planner. And I always get that response because it's an amazing calendar. However, I looked into it. This lady is a storytelling rock star. She's got an awesome origin story. She has got customer experience stories all over the website. And my favorite, for every planner sold, one gets donated to a person in need. She had me right there. That is the power of cause marketing. Now you've gotten the basics of purposeful storytelling. It's too many P's, it's difficult to say. The next thing you need to do is create powerful stories. One could very easily say that Sherlock Holmes was the original forensic psychologist. He would see things that no one else would see. He would walk into a crime scene and see details that no one else recognized. In a study of Scarlet, Holmes says to Watson, "I consider that a man's brain originally is like a little empty attic, and you have to stock it with such furniture as you choose. A fool takes in all the lumber of every sort that he comes across, so that the knowledge which might be useful to him gets crowded out. Now the skillful workman is very careful indeed as to what he takes into his brain attic." When you give your customers, your potential customers, too many details, your story loses power. You need to give them enough that they can create a mental picture, but little enough that they fill in the blanks with experiences from their own lives. When I told you about Gemma, I said she was a mini dachshund mix, but I didn't give you any other details. Chances are you had a special pet growing up. I didn't want you to picture Gemma during that story. I wanted you to picture your precious pet. I wanted you to imagine your best friend sitting up on that table. When you leave out some of the details, your audience will step up and fill them in. That is how your stories will have power. That's how they'll resonate. I'll never forget how I felt sitting across from that potential donor. Defeated. It wasn't until I realized that the power of sales comes from emotion. And the key to emotion is through stories. That's when I was able to close the sale. I've put all of the 4 P's to storytelling for business in my new book, Once Upon a Bottom Line. I was hoping to have it in hand today, but instead I'm going to be doing a pre-sale. So if you're interested, it'll be at the back table or the pre-sale form, and a portion, of course, will go to Hearts Alive Village. Whenever you sit down with your potential customer, please remember that you are not a salesperson. You are a storyteller. And you need to remember to put yourself in their shoes. Be purposeful, be powerful, and be pure and simple. So go tell some stories.